Good afternoon, everyone. Let me introduce myself. I am Maryna Shevtsova, and I am FWO, a senior postdoctoral researcher here at KU Leuven at Lions. I would like, of course, first of all to thank the Forum and also Flux Foundation and Emma Goldman Award for making today's event possible, because that's how we could bring here wonderful Ukrainian and Belarusian feminist scholars and researchers. Before introducing them, I wanted to introduce you the book, this edited volume that was published in February, and explain you a little bit why we believe it's an important book and why we hope that you will have the possibility to read it. You know that Russia launched full-scale invasion against Ukraine in February 2022, and the war is ongoing. Of course, the first response for all of us, first weeks, was shock. Many people have had to flee the country or at least their cities. And the first week and first months, of course, there was no way that any one of us could speak or write about this. Everybody I knew and I know was involved in some humanitarian effort. Somebody was sitting on the phone and trying to connect people to help to move across Ukraine, to find safe ways to do so, collecting clothes, medicines, sending money, telling where there are gas stations, where there is gas for people who were moving because there were shortages. So, you know, for researchers, as for all other people, it was impossible to think about anything else than saving others themselves and their children or their beloved ones, or if they were in safety themselves, then helping their friends and families and whoever. But as a little bit time passed, what we discovered and what we saw with great surprise, not a pleasant surprise it was, that immediately, as of course a response to any hot topic, you saw a lot of books and articles popping up. And I was myself working outside of Ukraine when the full-scale invasion started, so I could travel, and I started seeing in airports books written by experts on Ukraine, about the war, about Zelensky, about the conflict. And, you know, the books were published in like 1 month, 2 months, very quickly. And the level of expertise of their authors was, you know, he or she would travel like for 2 weeks to Kiev in the 90s. And so they were already experts enough to publish a book on the issue because they had time and probably were well paid. At that time, I was at the University of Ljubljana in Slovenia, and they had weeks for gender equality. And my colleague, Milica Antić-Gaber, Serbian scholar who's been living and working for years in Slovenia, she wanted to make a panel or an event with Ukrainian scholars. Of course, not a scientific one. It was more just to talk to each other and to give some perspective on what's going on with women scholars coming from the country. And Tamara was one of the scholars we asked and who could join. And were you there still? No, you were already in Germany, right? Tamara evacuated by that time to Germany. And we talked. It was a very sad and at the same time a little bit happy for me conversation, because I could see Tamara, I could see Daphna, that they are alive, you know, and we could share certain things. It was still a state of shock for all of us. But then Milica, sharing with us her experience being a scholar, feminist scholar who lived through Yugoslav wars. What she said, it was striking. She said, if you have energy and if you can, write about it now, because her experience was that many Western scholars came to the region, used her colleagues and herself for knowledge extraction, and it was somewhat later than they understood that, you know, they have to fight for their space in academia and in scholarship production. And so we talked. I talked to my colleagues and friends, and we decided that we need to do this volume. So this volume was written, I would say, fast, quickly, in less than a year. And one thing I want to show you the book. I think it's beautiful. The cover is by Ukrainian artist Irina Stasiuk, and all the authors, or no, almost all the authors of this book. There is one Canadian scholar, but the rest are all Ukrainian or Eastern European, Central Eastern European feminist scholars. And what is very important for me is that all of the authors or contributors of this book are not only scholars, but also practitioners, people who are engaged in activism, working with NGOs, with international organizations, and who all do a lot of work on the ground. And if you read this book, you will notice this in each chapter. For example, Daphna and Ivan, who are now, Ivan is the only man scholar in this book. And he and Daphna, his partner, they both were in Ukraine when the large-scale invasion started, but they both are PhD students in Canada and the US, respectively. But they couldn't leave the country, or Ivan couldn't leave the country because of the ban for men between 18 and 60-year-old. So they got basically stuck there. And instead of fieldwork, well, they did fieldwork, but their fieldwork was through going to the affected areas and bringing humanitarian aids, drones, some equipment, medicines. When the Kakhovka Dam exploded, Ivan was evacuating dogs and people from the area. So that's how, people who were writing the chapters for this book, that's what they were living through at the same time. So I think this is also something that needs to be kept in mind when you read these chapters, because some of them are more theoretically sound, of course, but I think it is much more important because of the lived experience that is there and the reflections of people living through the ongoing war. Without taking more time, I would like to introduce our three wonderful speakers today who all contributed to this book, and I could talk about each of them for long time because they've done a lot already. So I will make a short introduction, and then you can all look them up online and see how many publications and how many exciting things they all have done. So we'll start in the order of today's presentations with Dr. Olena Strelnik. Olena she received her doctor habilitation from in sociology from Taras Shevchenko Kyiv National University. And currently, for 2 years already, almost for 2 years, right, Olena's been a visiting scholar at the Technical University Munich. Olena's done extensive work. She has more than 100 publications of different kind, from academic articles to policy briefs, reports, articles for a broader audience, and of course, her very important book, which is called Childcare as Work, Turbota jak robota, which is a great book, and we were just talking today how nice it would be to have it translated to English. Olena worked with many international organizations, and more importantly, or more cool, I would say, she's been also organizing Women's March in Poltava, and also Olena has been doing a lot for development of women's movement and fighting for women's rights in Ukraine. Now, Dr. Tamara Martsenyuk is also the PhD in sociology. Tamara also had to evacuate from Ukraine and is now a visiting scholar in Germany and Leuven University. But also she's been teaching for years at Kyiv National University of Ukraine, and I would say that Tamara probably has done a lot, not probably, but definitely, but more than many other people for popularizing gender studies in Ukraine. She's written several books in Ukrainian, such as Why Not to Be Afraid of Feminism or Defenders of Galaxy, which are basically targeting broad audience of Ukrainians to learn more about what is feminism, what are gender studies. And she's been extremely popular among her students in Kyiv Mohyla Academy. There are always waiting lists for her courses on masculinity and gender studies. So I'm very happy to have her here. And finally, the last but not the least, Katerina Loska, which is here in Belgium. So it's a little bit easier to reach if you need, at the University of Ghent, a PhD in political science, right? Not yet, but about to become. Katya is from Belarus, and she's an activist, human rights activist, and also critical feminist researcher, I would say, even though you're doing research in political science. She had fellowships in European Studies at College of Europe in Bruges, also in Comenius University in Bratislava, and worked with the Oxford Belarus Observatory. Is that correct? Yes. And is also very bright scholar, and I'm very happy to have such a constellation here.